Hi, Engagers, and welcome to our online community. We're extremely excited to have you here with us. If this is your first time visiting, we want to make sure that you know that it's completely okay to not be okay. If you find that this message has blessed you, we want to make sure that we provide the opportunity for you to give. And here at Engage, we have two ways that you can do that. Our first is our online giving. You can go to www.engagechurch.org, or you can use our text functionality by texting any dollar amount to 240-434-0761. Now, I hope that you enjoyed this empowering message by our pastor, Nelson Bowen.
Good morning, Engage Church. Man, I'm so excited to be with you today. Hey, we're getting ready to get started. I'm going to give you a few seconds to grab your notebook. Why don't you go ahead and get your iPad together? Maybe you're having breakfast and you're wrapping up. Why don't you yell up to your spouse and say, hey, come downstairs. PB is on. Let's be alert. Let's be attentive during this process. Here's what I understand and know, that we are in the middle of some unprecedented times. It seems like the reports are changing every single day, maybe even every single minute. And as soon as you get like, maybe I can breathe and I can come up for some air, we get something else that drives us back into maybe despair. But here's what I want to let you know, that we are people of faith. And because we're people of faith, we don't choose what the world chooses. We're going to choose faith over fear. We're going to choose peace over panic. We're going to choose to worship instead of worry. And what I want to talk about today is that second point. I want to talk about peace, because we have to understand and know that that's what God will give us every single time we ask for it. And to do that, I want to look at the book of Mark, chapter number 4. It's a very familiar story. I'll pick up at verse number 35. It says this: on that day when evening had come, he said to him, let us go across to the other side. And leaving the crowd, they took with him in the boat just as he was. And other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. It's filling up with water. But he was in the stern, he being Jesus, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was this great calm. And he said to him, Why are you so afraid? Have you no faith? You know, many of us have heard this story before, but I'll still provide a little bit of context to it. The disciples and Jesus, they're in the process of getting ready to go to the other side. And because they're going to the other side, he has the disciples get in, and Jesus says, okay, I'm going to go to the bottom. I'm going to get some sleep. And this journey was no different for them. This was not an unprecedented trip. It was the same boat, the same people. They were going along the same path. But on this particular day, while they were just going on a routine trip, here comes this storm of epidemic proportions. It comes out and it's like, wait a second, what is going on? We've always gone this road. We've always traveled down this path. We've always gotten this boat and tried to go across this side. What is different? Because this storm breaks out and they think that this is the one that's going to wipe them out. You've got winds raging. You got the waters. They're literally starting to come inside the boat and they're panicking with fear. And what was supposed to be this routine trip has now become maybe one of the worst days of their life. At least that's what they're thinking in this moment. At least that's what it feels like. Wait a second. Where did we go wrong? What happened? Did we miss it? Did we not read the weather right? I don't understand. And maybe you can relate because you thought that March 13th, 2020 was just a regular day for you. You thought that this day was just a normal routine. Maybe you dropped your kids off at work. Maybe, I'm sorry, I said drop your kids off at work. Come on, PB, get yourself together. You didn't drop your kids off work. You dropped your kids off at school, right? Or maybe you were at the place or you were going to work or you were heading maybe to the gym, wherever it was. And all of a sudden, you started hearing these reports about COVID-19 maybe taking a turn for the worse. Maybe it is more serious than you thought. And you started hearing about how schools are shutting down. And maybe that now they're telling you to telework, or maybe you're non-essential staff. And so they're saying, why don't you just stay home and stay away? And you're trying to figure out what in the world is happening. How did we get here? What was supposed to be this routine day is now becoming maybe one of the worst days of my life. And I don't understand. Maybe this is the virus that's going to wipe me out. You're looking at the economy and you're saying, man, if this thing takes a turn for the worse, I don't know how I'm going to survive it. Maybe you're hearing rumors at your job that they might let you go, and maybe that's starting to grip your heart, and you're like, what happens if that does occur? What are we going to do? Maybe it's not even COVID related. Maybe for you, what it is you woke up one morning and you started to realize that your marriage isn't in the place that you thought it was. That maybe things are a lot more rocky than you even assumed. Maybe you're a high school student and you never would have imagined that March 13th would have been your last day. You never would have imagined that you wouldn't have the opportunity to walk across the stage and hear your name and get your diploma. Maybe you haven't even filled out all your scholarship applications and you're trying to figure out what's going to happen with this. It's like, PB, this was supposed to be a normal routine day. And it seems like every day after March 13th has brought more fear and more panic and more anxiety into my life than I could ever imagine. It just seems to be chaotic. What do we do in times like this? I think we can take a couple of lessons from these disciples. They went to go wake Jesus up. And here's what's crazy to me, right? Is that if you really picture the surrounding scenes here, you've got this wind whipping, you got the waves raging. You can only imagine that supplies are falling all over the ship. And while that is happening, Jesus is asleep. I think it tells us one thing, that it can be chaotic around you, but you still have to make up in your mind, I'm not going to allow the world around me to steal the sleep that God has given me. And maybe that's where you are, where you're finding yourself tossing and turning at night because you're up worrying and you're up in fear. You're up panicking. And I'm telling you, do not allow anything to steal your sleep. Matter of fact, I want you to say this with me. I will not allow anything to steal my sleep. And so here's what happens. These disciples, they go to wake Jesus up. Now, remember, I told you to think about what's happening. Get the picture of this. You got supplies falling everywhere. The wind is whipping. The water's coming into the ship. And in the middle of that, Jesus is still asleep. Like, how did none of that wake Jesus? But when the disciples said, teacher, Jesus, teacher, Jesus, he immediately woke up. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. Are you listening to me? Please listen to me. You got to get this point. Come on, some of y'all been coming to my sermons for a while. You know what? When I get going like this, like what that mean? I mean, clap, cheer, get excited. I'm telling you, here's a major point. You ready? Major key. None of that woke up Jesus. But the moment the disciples said his name, he woke up. What am I saying? I'm saying that you have the ability to arrest the attention of Jesus. That if you'll call out his name, even though it may feel chaotic and you may feel confused and it's like, what the world is happening? When you say, Jesus, Jesus, he'll show up for you every single time. Now, I think it's interesting that the way they woke him up, they said, teacher, don't you even care? You see, here's what happened. These disciples, they allowed all this fear and all this panic to cause them to forget who they were. They were friends of Jesus. And I'm telling you, maybe this is what you need to hear. You've been hearing everything on CNN, been hearing everything on Channel 4, Channel 5, whatever channel you listen to. But maybe what you really need to hear is this, that Jesus absolutely cares for you. He cares for you. And he will not let you drown. He will not let you be overtaken by any of this stuff. He cares for you. In the moment that he woke up, he dealt with their most pressing concern, which at that moment was the storm. And he goes to the storm and he says, peace, be still. In fact, it actually says here in scripture that he spoke to the wind. Let me tell you something. You can't see the wind. And all week, what I've been hearing our president call this coronavirus is the invisible enemy. It's the enemy that you can't see. And I'm telling you that Jesus could not see that wind, but he still spoke to it. And I'm telling you, you might not be able to see the coronavirus. You might not be able to see what COVID-19 looks like, but you can still speak to it. You can say, peace, be still. You can say, no, COVID, you will not come near my dwelling place. You will not come near my children. You will not come near my household, my family. We speak to the things that we cannot see first because it's what Jesus did. And when Jesus showed up, peace, be still is what he said. He brought peace to the situation. Now, here's what's funny to me, and I mean that in a literal sense. What's funny? After Jesus deals with this storm, he says, peace, be still. He asks the disciples, in my opinion, a rather funny question. He looks at them. He says, why were you so afraid? Have you no faith? Now, let me tell you, if I'm on that boat and you got supplies going everywhere, you got water coming into the boat, it feel like it's rocking and literally you're hearing all types of sounds and it's thunderstorming. And you ask me, hey, Nelson, why were you so afraid? My response is because I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die. This was a crazy time. What do you mean? Why am I so afraid? And maybe that's where you are. You just look at your current situation. You look at the world around you. And you're saying, man, look at the economy. I don't even know if my job situation is secure. Maybe you're saying, what about my marriage? What about my children? It's a lot happening all at once, but I promise you, if you would just sit down, take a moment to be still. I know you would hear God whisper in your ear. Why are you so afraid? Have you no faith? And I want to encourage you in this moment, not to be afraid, not to panic, but to know what I think these disciples realized. It's in the middle of all this panic, and in the middle of all this confusion, while they were on that boat in the middle of that storm, one of them, we don't know which one it was, but one of them said, wait a second, Jesus is on board. And if he's on board, he can deal with this. And when they went and they got Jesus, and at the presence of Jesus, peace showed up. And I'm telling you, and this is probably just the biggest point that I want to make to you today. It's this, that peace is just not something Jesus wants to bring you. Jesus is peace, and he lives inside of you. And here's what you need to know, that it can be chaotic, and there can be a bunch of confusion around you, but the peace of God lives inside of you. And so we're going to wake Jesus up, and we're going to say to our situations, peace, be still. Now here's the deal. I brought some friends with me. I'm super excited about this. Last week, I had the opportunity to introduce to y'all for the first time Greg. And Greg, they called me and they said, hey, PB, I'm glad Greg was up there delivering points and all that stuff. And I thought that was really nice and cool. But you need to let them people know that dark-skinned, swole man with his nice bald head is married. That was your wife, by the way. Yeah, man. So Greg is here with me. And Greg is married, so he is off the table.
I'm not just married, I'm Murray.
Murray.
That's different. Murray.
That's super different. Right. And then I also have the baddest chick in the planet. I mean, on the planet. In the planet, on the planet. Doesn't matter. It could be on or in. It don't matter. You are bad, girl. And my wife is here with me, and I'm super excited about it. We're going to be talking about peace today. Understand that what I just delivered can sound like at times it's easier said than done. Right? When you say, man, choose peace over panic, or wake Jesus up inside of you and have that peace. But understand, like, when you're hearing all these reports and you're seeing, like, the death totals rising, unfortunately, even before we started this, my wife, she showed me something about Italy, about 627 people dying in the span of 24 hours. And when you hear that, like, how do you have peace in these moments? And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, and I'll start with you, Greg, is this. Why does it seem like at times you have to fight for peace?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a number of reasons. I think as a society, we're almost programmed to feel like every minute of our day has to be appointed to something, or we have to, if we're not doing something, there's something we should be doing. And when you live your life in that way, it's kind of difficult to be settled and, like I said, be still and find that peace. I also think Ebony said something that was really important last week with being mindful of how much or what you ingest. Hearing those numbers, they're so shocking. So I think it's natural to kind of have that feeling of fear.
Yeah.
But like we talked about, when you're doing that, you want to make sure that you're choosing that faith over your fear.
Absolutely.
And when you're always surrounded by the news, and you're always ingesting that type of information, that can make it difficult to have peace. So of course you have to fight for it. But I think the most important aspect of that, of why you feel like you have to fight for your peace, is not really having a true understanding of where that peace originates.
Ooh.
Right. The simplest way I've heard it put was in Psalms 29:11. It says, "And the Lord will give His people strength, and He will bless His people with peace."
Yeah.
So when you understand that, even with everything that's going on around you, how busy you are, how much you have going on, with the news that's happening, with the devastation that's happening around you, if you can kind of just hunker down and knowing that your peace comes from Jesus, comes from your Lord and Savior, you can really start to, and enjoy that peace.
And I love what you said, because you said that He will bless you with peace.
Yeah.
And if you've been coming to our church, we just got out of this blessed series.
Absolutely.
And we said, I'm already blessed.
Yeah.
Which means I already have peace.
Absolutely.
That's what I love about this story. Jesus was on board the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
They just got so caught up in their panic and their fear that they forgot to wake Him up.
Absolutely.
And so they could have woke Him up sooner and say, wait a second. And so I think oftentimes what we have to do is wake up that peace that's already inside of us and say, wait a second, I'm choosing not to allow this stuff to move me. And like we say, I got to get still.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to realize it's okay not to be busy all the time.
Sure.
So I can take 30 seconds to say, wait a second, no, peace flood my heart.
Right. Yeah.
What about you, babe? What you think?
Just to kind of echo what Greg said about just, again, being still. I think sometimes it's really, really challenging, especially in times like this, and not even with just the coronavirus, but just in life, being a mom, being a wife.
You a new mom, girl.
I'm a new mommy, so
Come
that's like
now.
a whole nother
8 weeks though.
Right, and waking up in the middle of the night and nursing and work and trying to juggle all of these things.
That nursing is a thing too.
It's a real thing.
Hey, shout out to all the moms that are nursing and staying on.
It's a real thing. You're trying to store up milk and baby crying and it's a lot. But I think just having that balance, I think asking sometimes, because even though we have it, I think sometimes we almost forget that we have it.
That we have peace.
That we have peace. It's like, it's inside of you, but sometimes I'm so busy doing a million other things, I'm not thinking about, it's already in me.
Yeah.
So I think just kind of being balanced, and even one of the things that I speak over myself, over my son, over our house, is...
You speak over me?
I do, baby.
Oh, you say son in the house. I just want to make sure.
But you in the house. So
okay. I got you.
It's all in one.
I got you.
But I just say, let it be well with my soul. And that sometimes just, even when my son is just crying and screaming, I'm like, son, let it be well with your soul. And sometimes even those simple words, they have weight to them.
Absolutely.
And speaking the word back, like, you got to remind God, you told me this. This was a promise that you gave me, and standing on that promise.
He promised us peace.
That's super good.
So.
He's given us peace, man. I think we should not give away so easily what Jesus died for.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Jesus died so we could have peace. And so we should not give that away so easily, because we get a report, which is man's opinion over a situation, right? We got to get to the point where we're saying, nah, God gave me this and won't nothing keep this from me. So what have you done, or like, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like, man, there's no peace in this situation, and so now I feel like I got to fight for it? Like, what have you found yourself doing to maintain and keep peace when you felt like it wasn't there?
Yeah. I think having a place for peace is important. Right. Everything that we just talked about, they're very real things. Maybe for a new mom, those are things that you have to think about. As a busy professional, even as a pastor, right? There's certain things that you deal with on the daily. But having that place that you can go to be still, to listen for God's voice, to listen to that guidance, and even that reminder that peace is in you is important. So I would say for me, finding a place or having a place for peace is super important.
Awesome.
I think for me, I would probably say reflection. And when I say reflection, what I mean is that we can all think back to a time when we were like super busy with life, or things were just really bad in our lives. And I think for me personally, I love to journal. I don't journal as much, being a new mom, but sometimes I'll go back through my old journal entries and I'm like, Lord, I remember when I was drowning, and you got me from this place.
That's so good.
So if you did it back in 2007 or back in whatever the year was, I know you can do it now. And just that reminder of who he is and his character, and he's faithful. Wow. So if you're faithful then, he's consistent. You're going to be faithful now. And so sometimes that reminder, that reflecting back to where I was or what I went through before is really helpful.
I love that word drowning, right? I think it's so easy to think, I'm not on the boat, so I can't drown. But you can drown in work. Sure. You can drown in worry. You can drown in stress and anxiety. You can drown yourself with all this information that's going out. And I think it's so important for us to say, no, the peace of God keeps me afloat. Right? And that's what I really just want our church and really this world to know more than anything, that God's not caught off guard by this. Sure. He's not like, oh, shoot, COVID showed up. That wasn't on my agenda for the day. No. He knew that you would be born in such a time as this. Right? He knew that when he placed Greg or Ashell or PB or whoever else into this world, he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that in part of your lifespan, that COVID and your life would intersect.
That's good.
And so the peace that he's giving you was COVID proof. You see what I'm saying? Like that, because he knew they was going to intersect. And so your peace was built to handle whatever you will face in your life. So the only way that your peace can dwindle, or the only way that you won't have peace, is for you to give it away. Wow. It's the only way. Yeah. Because you've been given it. You get what I'm saying? And so one of the things I want to make sure that we say, peace is the absence of worry.
I like it. Yeah, I like that.
It's the absence of worry. You see, when I make a decision that I'm going to walk in peace, I am simultaneously saying, because I choose not to worry. It's not to say there's nothing to worry about. It's just that peace dominates my countenance. It dominates my steps. You hear what I'm saying? When was there a time, Greg, where maybe, and I'm putting you on the spot here, I recognize that, but when was there a time where maybe even walking in peace was a faith move? Because it didn't feel like, because I feel like that's where we are, right? It was the reports keep getting worse. Right. So how do we, when has it ever felt like a faith move for you maybe?
Yeah, just despite all the news, it's well, how can this not be something that I worry about? But to answer that question, it actually doesn't have to do with me directly. It was a situation that involved me, but probably back in 1998.
Oh, you old.
I mean, listen.
You just don't look it.
Listen, I wear it.
Them muscles take age off your life.
So probably about 1998, there was, not necessarily similar to this, but there was something going around called meningitis. I'm from the Midwest, so it was hitting a couple of youths in our area. And somehow, out of nowhere, I got it. I contracted it. And the other, it is contagious.
So
what's crazy is it's deadly. No, well, once you've gone through it, you're good. Yeah, but at the time, 2 other teens had it and they died. I was the third to get it during that time. Wow. So for my mom, my family, I mean, the report was likely he's not going to make it. Wow. Right? And from what I do remember of that, I just always remember them being present. I always remember them praying. I always remember them just speaking positivity. It wasn't so much well, this is what they're saying, so let's prepare for him. It was no. He gonna beat this. If anybody gonna beat it, he's gonna beat this. And so to answer your question, I think when everything looked grim, That was a moment where I really can feel deeply and really remember where faith was the option.
Come on. The only option.
The only option, yeah. Dead
So
serious.
good.
Wow.
That's so good.
That's awesome. Well, listen, we might not have a meningitis moment. I think we all have a moment where we felt like this was the thing.
Yeah.
For the disciples, it was this storm. For you, it was meningitis. I know for us, it was when they told me that I wouldn't have a child, right? And so I think one of the best things we can do is, like what you said, we got to recollect. We got to go back to whatever was the worst moment in our life at that moment and say, wait a second. I love what you said, baby. If God got me through that, then I know he'll get me through this.
I wanted to add one thing. When we speak about recollection and kind of going back to what we went through in the past, I think also just being mindful that even when we're not faithful, he is faithful.
Come on.
And I can't remember exactly where it is, but it says even though we're not faithful, God is consistent. And no matter what we do, because he said it in his word, that's what he'll do.
Come on.
And so I hang on to that, even when I'm in a little rocky place, I just hang on to God, but you're faithful. And even if it doesn't look like what I thought it was going to look like, you're still faithful and you're consistent and you love me and you have the best for me. And so I have to just hang on to those words. That usually gets me through those really rough seasons.
That's so good. Even when you said that, I was thinking as we get ready to wrap up, because God has already given us peace, peace is not subject to my surroundings.
Yeah.
That's good.
So peace is there whether I feel like it's there or not.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And so I just want to encourage you all, family, to choose peace over panic. I really hope you enjoyed this message today. Hey, I want to pray with you. I think it's a prayer that all of us should say at this moment. God, would you please, in this moment, allow us to become aware of the peace that's already inside of us? Would you allow our hearts to be flooded with it and give us that peace that passes all understanding? Hey, maybe you're listening to this message and this might have been the most peace that you felt maybe all week, maybe since March 13th. You can walk in that peace. I dare you to just say, from this day forward, I'm going to walk in the peace that God has already given me. Maybe you don't know God. Maybe you've never been introduced to his son, Jesus. And I want to take the last few minutes of this program because this is so important. It's the best decision you could ever make. In fact, when you make this decision, I promise you, peace will flood your heart for real. And that's this decision, to give your life to Christ. Maybe your heart is like this. You're like, what is that? Why is my heart beating? And what are these emotions that I'm feeling? It's simply Jesus knocking on the door saying, hey, would you allow me to come into your life today? And so if that's you, would you just say these few words? Say, Jesus, I give you my life. I believe in my heart and I confess with my mouth that you are Lord. Hey, if you said that prayer for the first time today, I want to tell you, welcome to the family. And would you please email amen@engagechurch.org. amen@engagechurch.org. And we can't wait to see you next week. Love you, family.
We hope that message inspired you. And if it did, we want to encourage you to give. There's two ways you can go about doing that. You can go to www.engagechurch.org or text any dollar amount to 240-434-0761. And because we are a church that believes in generosity, 50% of everything that comes in will be reserved for engagers who are experiencing difficulties during these times. Again, we hope that you enjoyed. We hope that you have a blessed week and look forward to seeing you next time.